Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit True of My Chest and it's by user Immeasurably Alt. I chose to be child-free and lost the one. Now I could get her back. I'm now 33 male. Leah, fake name by the way, is 33 female. I met her in our first year of university and we dated into our mid-20s, moving in together along the way. The relationship was everything I could ever want, but eventually questions that don't really come up at age 18 start to matter, and we found ourselves at an impasse. She wanted kids at some point, not that very moment. I didn't at all, not just at that moment. We buried our heads in the sand for a couple years. I guess we were just hoping the other would change their mind until it got clear we wouldn't, and we called it quits. That pretty significant roadblock was basically the only thing holding us back from getting engaged right then and there. So when things ended, I didn't know what to do with myself. I got it. I didn't want to be the reason Leah wouldn't have something she clearly wanted, but it was rough. Over the next year, there were a few times when I was damn close to calling her to say I'd changed my mind just to get her back. I'm not sure if I was planning to make do on that change of heart and be a father to kids I didn't really want, or if I would have just lied to her long enough to get my way. Both seem pretty crappy, but anyway, it thankfully didn't get to that. But eventually I moved on. Got back out there, and 8 years later, I've had a handful of relationships, including a couple I'd say got serious, the latest of which ended around a year ago. I have nothing negative to say about the women I've dated, but it never really clicked like it did with Leah, which I guess is why they eventually fizzled out around the 1 year mark. Back to Leah. We never technically burned bridges and even said we'd stay friends, but for most of the time that has passed since we broke up, we didn't make good on that. We were in contact occasionally, but far from frequently, and mostly kept it surface level, to the point that saying we were friends would be a significant stretch. That started to change last spring, as our infrequent chats slowly but surely turned into frequent hangouts. Of course, officially, we were merely reconnecting as friends, but when two single 30-somethings with a lot of history are spending more and more time together while conspicuously not making much of an attempt to see other people, it shouldn't be a massive surprise that things may not remain completely platonic forever. It did take a while though, but just last week, one of us finally took a decisive step to change the status quo. We spent a bunch of time together over the holidays, hanging out at my place on Christmas and attending a New Year's Eve party together, as friends of course, for example. I guess it's then that Leah got tired of me keeping the platonic pretense up and decided to take things into her own hands, and when we saw each other last week, she came out and told me she wants us to be back together again. She directly addressed the elephant in the room, the reason we broke up, and said she doesn't expect me to have changed my mind and is fine with that. She said she had a few pretty good relationships over the last years, but that she never quite felt like she did with me, and that reconnecting over the past year had confirmed to her that I still made her feel those things that others just don't. She said we don't have to jump right back into where we were all those years ago, and that she just wants to give us another try. She told me to think it over, and that's where I'm at, and feeling kind of lost. Because yes, in my immeasurable genius, and despite having realized months ago that my feelings for her had in fact returned, because of course they have, I opted to wait until now to give some thought as to what I'd do if she felt the same and brought it up. On the second hand, of course, I want to try again. But while Leah told me she's fine with my stance on having kids, she didn't outright say that she doesn't still want them. I probably should have asked right then, but immeasurable genius, you know. In my defense, I had a few things to process, okay? So are we trying again to once again kick that can down the road and hope the other changes their mind? I've also had a vasectomy, so yeah, I think I'd win that one. Or is she outright willing to give up on that for me? And if it's the latter, that's a pretty significant concession. And am I comfortable with the idea she might wake up in X years regretting her choice when it's actually too late? And then there's the fact that, okay, we can take things slow or fast or whatever, but if things went south again with us, it would be a pretty tough hit for me to tank, if the first time was any indication. And finally, yes, I know that if I want to actually get answers, I kinda just need to talk to Leah about all of this, which I already planned to when I next see her in a few days, and I should probably tell her about the vasectomy either way. I'm not expecting Reddit to have all the answers on this, and mostly typed it out to help put my thoughts in order. Well, OP, I think you do have a lot to think about, but the vasectomy thing definitely needs to be brought up. Now, regarding what to expect from this 2.0 version of your relationship, the feelings are real, but they were also real before. And back then, those feelings were not enough to bridge the gap between wanting kids or not. I don't think that just magically disappeared, and you definitely cannot reason your way out of feelings. So if she still wants children, even quietly, then yeah, resentment is a huge possibility, and an even harder breakup is another one. Now, if she's absolutely willing to give up having kids for you, then you need to be brutally honest with yourself about whether you can live with the risk of her resenting you later. Of course, none of this would be fair, but fair doesn't play a part in this game. So if you want to go into this with your eyes wide open, then you guys need to have a proper conversation, not a "that's a tomorrow us" problem. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Sassy Siren says, "This is a catch-22 if I ever seen one. You want Leah, she wants you. But you also have to consider if she's genuinely okay not having kids, or if she's just compromising to be with you again. Proceed, but with caution. Open communication is your friend here." Walking Gay Trash Can says, "You need clarity on her stance on children. Our wants and desires change so much in our 20s. Is she suggesting trying again because she's changed her mind? Sacrificing a future family for a relationship is a really good way to build resentment. But you don't know if that's what's happening until you ask." Poetic Furniture says, "My first love and I also didn't agree on kids. I thought he'd change. We are both married to other people who gave us what we want. His wife is a horse girl, and my husband wants more kids than the one perfect one we have. I almost gave up on motherhood, and sure, I could have been okay, but I wouldn't be as happy with my life." Stockpast 4659 says, "The having not having kids part is rough, and each of you has to be absolutely certain in their stance on this, so this absolutely needs to be your priority. But to be honest, at this point, I'd almost be more afraid that you two are in love with the idea of your past, the version from 8 years ago. It's a long time, and a lot of growing and maturing has, hopefully, happened on both sides. Take your time to properly get to know today's version of each other." Winky smiley face. And Opie responds, "That's fair. I do think I've seen enough of her in the past year to know that I'm very much into what she's become. Some of it familiar and some of it fresh. But it's true that we last were a couple ages ago, and the memory of that relationship definitely contributes to how I feel about her now. Perhaps more than it should. But I think she realizes that, which is why she suggested we take it slow and not try to just hit resume." Side funny note on the passage of time. We actually watched most of the final season of Stranger Things together recently, and it was kind of a trip to think about how we started that show when we were a couple. It doesn't feel like those should be the things that belong in the same temporality, but I'm not sure which one my perception is warped on. Well, the community seems to have given OP things to think about. So now let's move on to the update to see how the story ends. Back with an update. I'd already invited Leah to come over for dinner on Wednesday prior to sending out the original post, which, as the day came, felt both far too soon and like I couldn't wait much longer. When Leah got to my place, I opted to have the big conversation right out of the gate, realizing it might spoil the evening, but really, I don't think I'd have made for a very pleasant dinner partner with this rather pivotal conversation hanging over our heads. I started with the good stuff, telling Leah how much I loved that she was a part of my life again and that I shared every feeling she voiced last time. That I never felt like I did with her, either then or now, with anyone else. but that she'd correctly guessed that my position on having kids hadn't changed, that I had in fact had a vasectomy, and that if we were to try again, I would need to know that she's truly okay with this and isn't sacrificing something she might regret. I said that I'd love to give us another shot, but that she deserves to be happy and fulfilled, and that if I can't be the one to make that happen, the fact she hasn't found the right one yet doesn't mean she won't. Fun fact, telling the woman that you love there might be another guy out there who would make her happier than you could is not in fact fun. Leah replied that she thought I might say something along those lines and that she'd been anything but rash in making that decision. She admitted that she'd always picture herself having kids at some point, and it's not like she woke up one day and any such desire had just vanished, but that she once thought it'd be something she'd need by age 30 until she found herself past that arbitrary deadline without kids and yet generally content with her life. That she's got a niece she loves very much and a nephew on the way, and that she'd been questioning if she truly needed kids of her own before she and I even reconnected, confessing that this evolving outlook was part of why she'd even allowed herself to get close to me again. She conceded that she didn't become opposed to the idea of having kids either, but that at this point, she wouldn't call it a sacrifice, but rather just a choice, one that feels right to her. Now, I'm probably not the most objective person to say this, but I felt that this was a pretty damn convincing sales pitch. I did tell her that, as she'd suggested, taking things slow was most likely the right call, and that it entailed that I would understand if she re-examined that choice and only asked that she'd be open with me about it, but that in light of this, I'd love to take her out on a date at the first opportunity if she would have me. She replied that she'd love that before poking fun at my framing of us going on a date being a new thing, as though we hadn't spent the last several months seeing each other regularly for one-on-one dinners and other similarly intimate settings, ongoing evening included, which I countered saying that I hoped by the end of said date she'd noticed a marked difference between those times and this next one. Getting the big talk out of the way early, thankfully, turned out to be the right call, since its outcome was a positive one, and we had a lovely time together for the next few hours. Nothing too materially different from our recent hangouts so far, save for a bit of flirting, some gentle touches here and there, and a goodbye hug that lingered longer than usual. But it felt good to just be with Leah without having to pretend that my heart doesn't skip a beat every time she flashes me a smile. So right now, I'm planning our first date and kind of sitting on cloud 9. There probably won't be another update anytime soon. I appreciate the feedback I got the first time and will read what people have to say here as well, but I don't think writing a play-by-play of this new relationship would make for the best way to enjoy each step that may come. I'll most likely show this to Leah eventually, and whether you guys ever hear from me again will also be up to her. Willoughby, you guys had an open and honest conversation, apparently addressed the big elephant in the room. It doesn't mean it's absolutely gone, but you guys are doing the work for that. So, on that note, here's wishing you both the best. I truly hope it works out for you guys. Take care, Opie, and thanks for sharing. And now let's move on to the next post that also has an update. This post is from the subreddit Am I Overreacting, and it's by user CommonPiglet7437. Am I overreacting? My daughter didn't listen to the teacher during a female emergency and is now receiving a referral. My 14-year-old daughter is a freshman in high school. She has big dreams, so she takes school very seriously. She's a good student and doesn't get into trouble. Today, she emailed me to tell me that she told her teacher that she has her period and urgently needed to go to the bathroom. The teacher said no. She went on to tell the teacher that she is actively bleeding through her tampon and didn't want to get her light gray pants dirty for the rest of the school day. The teacher again said no. She panicked and went anyways. She stayed within the bathroom rules of being back within 5 minutes, etc. When she arrived back, the teacher told her to speak with her in the hallway. The teacher told her that she doesn't believe her and that she was going to receive a disciplinary referral. She recommended that my daughter have me email her to testify that she has her period. My daughter is freaking out because disciplinary referrals are usually used for students using AI or getting caught with their phone too many times. I'm trying really hard not to rage out at this teacher right now. Every email I've started isn't great. I ultimately decided to call the assistant principal to ask what my daughter should have done in this situation and plan to reserve my words for when I hear back from the assistant principal. Additional information. I was called to come to the nurse's office yesterday because my daughter had bad cramps and I needed to give meds, as well as signed a paper allowing my daughter to carry the meds on her. My daughter just got her period yesterday and this happened at about 9:30 a.m. Given that it's her second heavy day and how early she gets up in the morning, it makes sense that she was overdue at this point. Am I overreacting that my daughter is getting in trouble for not listening to the teacher during a biological urgency? I'm curious what others would have done or how you would approach this with the school or teacher. OP, you're definitely not overreacting, and your daughter did exactly what she had to do. What the teacher was doing was absolutely wrong. It's not like she can hold it. And on that note, even holding it is not healthy for you. And then telling her that she was going to receive disciplinary action because of this, that teacher is the one that needs disciplinary action, and good for you for calling the vice principal. Don't engage with the teacher at all. We just wait to have the call with the vice principal and see what steps to take from there. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section, and now let's quickly check out the community comments. Adventures of Violet says, don't send an email to the teacher, go over their head and deal directly with the principals. Woven Webs says, not overreacting. You march your adult self into the principal's office and stand up for your daughter. That demerit needs to be removed from her record. A report needs to be made not just about the teacher's refusal to let a young girl change her menstrual products, but about the interrogation, disciplinary threat, and disrespect after the fact. And 5HXR Greaves says, not overreacting. She did exactly the right thing. The general rule of thumb is that if you have to go and it's an emergency, you ignore the teacher and take care of yourself first. Repercussions last. What did the teacher expect? Your daughter to flash her bloody pad at her for proof? The community agrees OP is not overreacting. So now let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. I was going to stop by the school when I was done running errands, but the VP called me back just before I left. I told her the story just as my daughter told it to me. She genuinely seemed horrified. She shared my concerns as a mom who also has a high school daughter. She said she had looked up my daughter's record and there was zero evidence that she skipped classes or had any disciplinary actions against her that might suggest she has other intentions. And even if she did have a record, she still should have been allowed to use the bathroom. She asked what I wanted done to the teacher. I said, as a rage-filled mom right now, I want her fired. But I also understood the district was already understaffed, so I believed she at least needed to be educated and reprimanded. She asked if it was okay if she spoke to my daughter so she could get the cadence of the conversation straight from her before she spoke with the teacher and others. I told her please do so and that I thought it would be good for her to know that what happened was wrong and that she did the right thing. The downside to all of this is that the VP was leaving after their talk to go to a conference and wouldn't be back until Monday, so she probably won't talk to the teacher until then. She said that she was going to talk to my daughter and let her know that she can go to the ARC instead of that class until they meet again on Monday. Additionally, she is going to offer her a change in schedule. It does sound like the referral was merely a threat, and it worked. It scared the crap out of my daughter, who is scared of any sort of record. But before I go, I'll address a few comments. Some people thought it was weird she didn't text me. My daughter didn't text me because phones are banned in school. This was a rule for the first time this year, probably because it was on its way to becoming a state law, Wisconsin. If they are caught with their phone, even in their pocket, they will get it taken away, and a parent has to come into the office to get it. After a few times, they get a referral. But honestly, even last year, my kids emailed me because it was easier for them since they are always on their Chromebook. I appreciate all of the support. She's going to go crazy later when I tell her I posted this on Reddit and it got a lot of responses. Laughing smiley face. OP's in-post update. The teacher called me. I answered because I thought it was the VP, which was dumb because she had told me she was leaving for the day or the week. The teacher told me her account of the situation and explained to me that she created a new policy, and because it was the start of the semester, she was being firm with it. I said, "She told you it was urgent because of her period, and your response was to deny her, humiliate her, and then threatened her." She said that she just wanted to know that she wasn't lying to her. I said, "How did you want me to prove to you that she had a period? That you want a picture of a bloody tampon or something?" Not my finest moment, especially with my daughters in the car. She responded, "No, that's disgusting." I said, "I agree. Denying a young woman the bathroom and then wanting proof that she wasn't lying was disgusting." I was very disgusted in this situation. I then told her that I would prefer to continue this conversation with the VP, and we hung up. Willoughby, I guess the teacher is just doubling down, which gives you bigger artillery for your meeting on Monday. So here's wishing you having the best meeting there so you get justice for your daughter. Take care, Opie, and thanks for sharing. And now let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Petty Revenge, and it's by user Talula Talula. I caught my partner cheating, so I covered his whole house in glitter. That's literally it. I caught him cheating by looking through his trash, literally, lol, emails, and found some pretty graphic emails from the other woman. Confirmed he was with her that day through his Google Maps tracking. So I got every bit of loose glitter I owned, and I went to his house and scattered it. In his bed, his couch, his chairs, his toilets, his clothes, his iron flat top stove. I know I'll be okay, and I'm